All right. So there are the 4 Brahma Viharas, Metta, Karuna. You know, loving kindness, compassion that we can do guided meditation on, sympathetic joy and equanimity. They're all good and necessary. And it's something we should remember is that when we are practicing mindfulness, mindfulness is not enough. Isn't that crazy? It's actually not enough to be mindful. You can be mindful and just like really enjoying your rice. And that's great, you know. But there's a world of suffering out there that we have to deal with. And so mindfulness cannot be separate from compassion and loving kindness. It just can't. You know? I mean, otherwise you're splitting up the teachings and choosing what is convenient. And sometimes compassion just is not convenient. Because it has to face pain and difficulty that we'd rather not deal with. But you have to deal with it at some time. And the training means if you practice now when you're healthy and well, it'll be a lot easier later on. But if you wait, the longer you wait, the harder it gets. So, no time like the present. So last week we started our 37 Bodhisattva practices. What was it called? The behavior of the subtitle. A summary of how an awakening being behaves. Yesterday I learned, at our group in Jerusalem, we're doing this also. I came and I asked, so, did you all bring your pages? Nobody. I said, you know, it's good I'm not giving you a test. Like, you'd all fail. You know? So, you didn't have to bring it. But I made extra copies anyway. Just in case. Just in case. So, we're going to go. We managed to get all the way to number 8 out of 37. I'm going to try to...
It was an +1.
Yeah, you guys are more advanced.
Okay.
You're much more highly advanced practitioners. One more stanza.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to plow through these. Now, the reason is because, first of all, some of the things we're going to read is going to upset you. It definitely is going to rub you the wrong way. Right? It's going to be so counterintuitive to the way you feel you should relate. And that's exactly the point. The other thing is, these are practices. They're not destinations, right? They're not achievements. They're practices. The whole point of a practice is something that you practice. I know it sounds like a truism. A practice is something you practice. Yes, it is. What does that mean? It means that you're always finding you need more to do. You always have more to do with a practice. You're never done practicing, right? So, just like with music, you go over the beginning scales over and over again. So, we go over with our beginning scales of cultivating compassion, and we're never done. So, I want to go right to 8. 9, actually. We're at 9. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Super. The other thing I want to remind us is that the practice of compassion doesn't presume that by generating compassion, you're going to observe results around you. Like, that is ego, wanting to be confirmed. Like, yeah, it's working. Or magic, you know. But we're not practicing magic. There's one main thing that the practice of the Dharma is trying to do, first and foremost, is to change your mind, right? And then see what happens. But until your mind is transformed, what are you expecting is going to happen on the outside? Like suddenly everything is going to get better because you wished compassion? No, not at all. But your mind is going to change. And that's what this whole practice is about. You know? Softening and opening and being less reactive. Being less reactive based on our conditioned habits of the mind that are often very selfish. Okay, that's our starting point. We practice to notice that. That's why the first object of compassion is for yourself. You feel angry? Don't judge. Have compassion. Can you do that? Are you impatient? Where's the judgment there? Oh, I'm such a bad practitioner. No. Feel sorry, right? And then motivated. Well, I know exactly the work I have to do. Your anger, your impatience, your judgment is your teacher, showing you exactly what you should be dealing with, right? That's reason to bow. Kind of hard to do, isn't it? That's why it's a practice, not a destination. 9. The happiness of, we talked about the lower worlds, animal, hell realm, hungry ghosts. And now the happiness of the 3 worlds disappears in a moment, like a dewdrop on a blade of grass. The highest level of freedom is one that never changes. Aim for this. This is the practice of a Bodhisattva. The happiness of the 3 worlds, the human realm, the kind of jealous God realm, and then, the divine realm. And each of those, the human realm, that's in this kind of classic Buddhist way of dividing up the world. And again, I said with the 3 lower levels, those are states of mind that we have, like animals are afraid, and hungry ghosts are always desiring, and the hell realm is full of hatred. And you see that in your mind. You go up and down those levels every day. And you also go up and down the 3 higher worlds. There's the human realm where just I'm here, I'm here, right? I'm observing, I'm curious, I'm open, I'm mindful, I'm ready to practice, and I'm not living in my illusions. That's the human realm. Okay, this is the place to be. And then above that is the jealous God realm. Those are people who are super successful. What does happen there? It's very competitive, right? It's a competitive place. Okay, they're so competitive and so jealous of each other. You hear somebody else succeeded where you didn't, what's your reaction? Is it sympathetic joy? I'm so happy for you. Or is it, God damn, why him and not me? Honestly, that's the jealous God realm. Ever been there?
Why is it superior?
What's that?
Why is it superior?
Oh, it's not. It's not superior. The human realm is the best place to practice. But it's thought of by unenlightened people as being a great place to be. Because you have a lot of fame and wealth. That's the idea. That's, conventional society aims for that. But people who are up there and they haven't developed their awareness, what are they like? Nasty. Mean. Selfish. It just it's magnifying those kleshas, right? So those hang-ups. and then what about the worst, according to the Buddhist idea, the worst one is to be in heaven, right? The worst is to be in heaven where everything is just peaceful and beautiful. Peaceful and beautiful, right? Just perfect. What's the problem there? There's no motivation to practice at all, right? And that's why the truth of dukkha is so important. Because dukkha, right? Why is it so important? A noble truth? That's the first thing, the first noble truth that you have to accept, that there's real pain and difficulty in life. Because that pushes us to practice. If we didn't experience dukkha, why would we want to change anything? We'd be stuck. And we also wouldn't be able to recognize the dukkha, the suffering that other people have. So our compassion wouldn't develop. So in the heaven realm, there's no practice and no compassion. They're just everybody's floating, happy, But what happens? The other problem is that the karma runs out, right? And then the happiness, they fall from that place and they can't deal with it. So, they didn't prepare. Practice now. Before you lose the privilege you have. You're going to lose it. I mean, maybe not your wealth or your leisure time, but your health, for sure. Your youth, for sure. Like, you're going to lose it. So practice now, while you're young and healthy. All right. Like a dewdrop on a blade of grass. If all your mothers who love you suffer for time without beginning, how can you be happy? To free, limitless sentient beings, give rise to awakening mind. This is the practice of Bodhisattva. And again, I'm skipping the third line there is give rise to the awakening mind. What we're working on here, people are going to suffer. What you're in charge of is your mind. You may not be able to change their lives, but you can change your mind. That's what you're working on, is awakening your mind. Okay? And then it says, if all your mothers who love you suffer without being... Now this is also coming from the Tibetan... Remember, this is a Tibetan text. And they have the idea of endless reincarnation. And, if everything's reincarnated in every other form, and you've been everything throughout history and beginningless time, that means that every creature has at some point also been your mother. We also can think that you've also been everybody else's mother at some point too. Which is kind of weird and useful if it works for you, and if it doesn't, just move on. Right? Like, it's kind of odd to think of everybody as your mother, but if it helps you. But it's also just a way of saying everybody's related in a deep way, in a way that we usually ignore. We're related. It doesn't have to be bloodlines, it can just be the emptiness, the interconnectedness, the harmony of the world. So you can think of it as motherhood, or you can just think, we're dependent on each other. We're dependent on each other. Just leave it at that, right? And if you're suffering, at some point it'll reach me, and if I'm suffering, it'll affect you. And it affects each other in a global way too. So we're connected. All suffering. 11. All suffering comes from wanting your own happiness. Complete awakening arises from the intention to help others. So, exchange completely your happiness for the suffering of others. This is the practice of a bodhisattva. Well, that's hard to take, isn't it? But it's true. I mean, it's true. Consider it for a moment. All suffering comes from your wanting to be happy. Does that mean you shouldn't want to be happy? Someone asked me yesterday, what's wrong with being happy? Like, what's wrong with wanting to be happy? Nothing. You should want to be happy, but not exclusively happy, right? If your happiness is at the exclusion of others, right? Or does your happiness also include, So, is it me versus them? Is it a zero-sum relationship? Or is it win-win, right? Is there sympathetic joy that your joy is my joy too? So if I see that we're deeply connected, then actually, as the Dalai Lama said, if you want to be selfish, be wisely selfish. Meaning, realize the unity of yourself and others. So that if you're intending them to be happy and free of suffering, then naturally you will be too, because of that interrelationship. So, yeah.
About this, the last few weeks I've had this I was looking at people around me, or people even not around me, people I hear a podcast of, and suddenly a lot of people seem to be awakened, not as a full ended state, but awakening or in that way. And then I suddenly thought that, oh, it's so great, it's much easier. You don't need to force any awakening or any special thing for myself. I just need to kind of ride on that rather than other people. Just kind of try to help them maintain their own awakening, and then it's much easier. That way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's easier. If we look around, we see people as like Buddhas, even if they don't know it.
Yeah.
It just makes life a lot easier. Definitely. One of this, where there's something here in the line where it says, so exchange completely your happiness for the suffering of others. There's a very deep Tibetan practice called Tonglen. You ever heard of it?
Yeah.
It's exchanging like self for others, and actually you imagine the suffering of somebody else in the form of black smoke, and then you breathe it in.
Wow.
You actually, as much suffering as they have, you take it into your body. And then when it reaches your heart, suddenly your awakening energy transforms it into awakened light that reaches them and helps them. So isn't that wonderful? Now, do we take that literally? Of course not. You know, of course we don't take it literally. You're not breathing in their smoke. What you're doing, okay, again, what are we working on? Transforming the mind so we no longer have such aversion to other people's suffering. Do you ever feel like, you know, you'd just rather not? Like the suffering kind of turns you off? You know? Like, you just don't want to deal with it. There's too much already. I got to just get through. I'm a hero if I just get through my own day. Right? But everyone else's? I mean, come on. This is trying to work on that natural aversion we have to other people's suffering. Yeah? Instead, it's just saying, bring it on. Like, if it's too much for you to deal with it, let me deal with it. Okay? And that's why we're trying to awaken, is to say, well, you know, if you're awakened, then suffering of others is not going to take that awakening away. Right? And in fact, your own suffering is not going to do anything to your own awakening. And that's one of the things we try to sit with, to remember, is that, you know, I can have all these confused and selfish thoughts, and it's doing nothing to the nature of my mind as awakened and free. Perhaps it's like covering it up so that I'm less aware of it, but it's not changing the nature of mind. Right? So anything you take in is not going to change the nature of your mind. And what it does is it gives you confidence in your ability to, you know, help. So again, what we're trying to do is we're trying to transform the way we relate to the world. Instead of saying, you know, this is too much, we say, hey, you know, let me help. It's like such a different kind of turn. Exchange self for others. 12. Even if someone, driven by desperate want, steals or makes someone else steal everything you own, dedicate to him your body, your wealth, and all the good you've ever done or will do. This is the practice of Bodhisattva. I'm just going to go through some of these because they're doing the same thing over and over again. They're saying, like, someone is going to do the worst thing you can imagine, give them more. You know? Love them for it. Not for it. Love them, just love them. Right? There's that story of Ryokan. It's a real story of the monk Ryokan. He was an impoverished monk, Japanese monk living in a hut, and a thief came in, couldn't find anything in the hut because who is he? He has a robe in his bowl. Couldn't find the bowl, so he takes the robe, and Ryokan wakes up and sees the monk like climbing out the window. The monk sees him, the thief, yeah. I guess he was maybe a potential monk. He sees the thief climb out the window, and the thief runs away, and Ryokan looks out the window and says, oh, you know, I wish I could have given him this moon. There was a full moon, and like, he was sad that like he wanted to give him more. Okay. Now, of course, the moon is a symbol for the enlightened mind in Buddhism. So he was like, if I could have just shared with him, you know, some deep truth, maybe he wouldn't be doing this. He wouldn't be hurting others and himself, right? But alas, I didn't have that chance. And that's an act, that's great love. Even if you have, we're at 13, even if you have done nothing wrong at all, and someone still tries to take your head off, spurred by compassion, take all his or her evil into you. This is the practice of a bodhisattva. You know, somebody told me that he was at a Tibetan retreat right after 9/11 in somewhere in New York, and the teacher was talking about having compassion for the people, the hijackers of the planes, and it was just, and he was saying it with tears in his eyes, and even though the people were like on a retreat, they're like, you know, like, this is too much. Like I can't, this is too much. Maybe later, but now, let's just have compassion for the families. Both of those sides are true. Like they're both true. We don't have to argue truths, right? Whatever, it's like what I said with the limit of the person who sat for half an hour said, at 15 minutes, like it was too much for me already. Okay, then stop at 15 minutes. If you're practicing compassion, you're wishing somebody else, to exchange their suffering for your happiness. And you want to offer them happiness. And, it's a fair trade. I'll take your suffering and you take my happiness. And if it's too much for you, then fine, do it where you can. But do it. Practice where you can, what you can. But just because, some levels are too much for us, like maybe, I don't know, somebody you can't just like is too much, either personally or nationally or whatever, right? Then yeah, you accept that limit, but you keep practicing. You don't use that as a reason to stop practicing, right? Keep stretching. It's like yoga. You keep working at it, stretch. It's going to hurt a little bit, but don't wait till it hurts too much. Then step back and give yourself a break, right? Have compassion for your limits, but don't see them as final. Even if someone broadcasts to the whole universe slanderous and ugly rumors about you, in return, with an open and caring heart, praise his or her abilities. This is the practice of Bodhisattva. If someone's arguing with you, the worst thing you can do with them is agree with them. Because there goes the fight's over, right? Even if someone humiliates you and denounces you in front of a crowd of people, think of this person as your teacher and humbly honor him. This is the practice of a Bodhisattva. Even if a person you have cared for as your own child treats you as his or her worst enemy, lavish him or her with loving attention, like a mother caring for her ill child. This is the practice of a Bodhisattva. Even if your peers or subordinates put you down to make themselves look better, treat them respectfully as you would your teacher. Put them above you. This is the practice of a Bodhisattva. When you are down and out, held in contempt, desperately ill, and emotionally crazed, don't lose heart. Take into you the suffering and negativity of all beings. This is the practice of Bodhisattva. I told you it's going to get a little extreme from our point of view. Like, I am about to go crazy. Let me take your suffering. Right? Yeah. But actually it's so true. Because the best way to escape your problems is to think about someone else's. If you're so caught up with yours, think about what someone else needs. And all of a sudden yours, it doesn't mean that yours don't exist or they're not important or whatever, but you just switch the focus. It's like I can be looking at, and I have all these distracting thoughts in my mind during meditation. Again, I try to bring these teachings back to what we do in meditation, because this is our laboratory. So when you are having a lot of distracting thoughts, what do? You don't say, okay, bad thoughts, or I can't have those thoughts, or whatever, or they don't exist. Of course they exist, right? But I'm going to choose not to focus on them. So I turn my focus to my breath, right? Or to something else. I can say cultivate compassion or metta. That's fine. But in no way am I denying those thoughts. In no way am I denying the suffering and the emotional craziness I'm going through. But I'm just going to say, okay, this is not my focus right now. Right? Right now my practice is going to be, what do you need? Right? What do you need? Okay? This is a practical practice, right? In order to help your mind be less self-centered.
But what way we look on somebody else's suffering? We try to think what we feel if we were him?
Yeah, that empathy can be useful, but if we don't have that empathy, does it mean we can't practice compassion? So compassion practice here is not necessarily an emotion, feeling, or even empathy that you have. Because that would create conditions for you to practice compassion. Like, I can only reach compassion if I can kind of feel what you're feeling. No. Here it's just saying, I wish to take your suffering and give you, happiness. That's all. And it can just be that mantra. Let me receive your suffering and give you my happiness. Right? I wish I could take it from you. I don't even know what you're going through. I just know that it's bad. Right? So let me take it. That's all. I don't need to know what you're going through. It may be helpful in some ways. Okay? But I can't wait. You can't wait for me to know what you're going through. Right? You need compassion now. So this is a practice that we can do now. It's like, wow, so someone's suffering, and maybe I don't even know how they're suffering. Well, in any way you're suffering, let me take it. Right? Let me take it for you. Let me help you with that. And I don't even know how, what kind of help you need, but any kind of help, I wish I could help. So it's kind of like this wish that we're trying to condition our mind to care more. That's what we're trying to do, right? And to care less about my own neuroses, problems that seem to take up so much of my time. So it's just like switching the mind, trying to transform the mind here.
What's the difference, you think, between like just saying "May you be well" and versus "I want to take in your suffering"? Like, isn't the first one like our focus or strong enough on its own? Because the second one seems a bit, I don't know, theoretical, maybe more imagination. And the wish is just something more concrete, I think.
Maybe. Sometimes, though, that wish can be kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, it can just be a token wish, right? Because something we just do is sort of a passing thing. Whereas here, where I'm trying to exchange self for other, and I'm trying to take it, I'm trying to have a personal relationship a little more. Not just like, hey, be well, right? Like walking by, you're having a hard time. Get over it. You'll be fine. It's like, you know what I mean? We can be kind of doing it in passing. And I think the second way is saying, okay, well, I'm going to stop for a moment. Like, it makes you pause. That pause is where you enter in a relationship, even if the relationship is just an imagined one. Like this woman, I mean, we talk about, Jonathan mentioned this woman to me, Irina. I have no idea who she is. But you know what? To the best of my ability, I'm going to try to, take in her suffering and give my, happiness to her. Wherever she is, I don't even know where she is. Right? So I think it's the kind of like mindfulness helps us to slow down. So here, the practice of this compassion, saying, you know what? Don't do it in passing. Pause. And when you pause, it goes a little deeper into your own heart as well. So I think that's kind of it. So it's not just perfunctory. That's the word I was looking for. It's not just a perfunctory like practice. It's more, I'm going to pause and, rest with this a moment. And then go on. So that's the difference, I think.
Also, maybe like, at least I feel that way sometimes when I have the wish of may you be well, it's actually just a kind of aversion, because it's like it's a game with words. So may you be well is sometimes just this, may you just get over it, I don't like what's happening now. Be over it already. So I think like...
שיהיה לו לתרופות.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like
That's
that one
thing, like,
is really like talking to me in this, this is a good one to use. It's a better intention to set.
Yeah.
Because you can't fake it.
It's saying I'm the medicine.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm the medicine, okay? Huh? Let's see what else we got here, because we gotta got to get through this.
What's the number of yesterday?
I forgot.
We already arrived.
Where are we? I know we arrived, but
We already arrived.
But
There's
there's-
nowhere to go.
there's nowhere to go.
Mm.
Let's just finish.
With
We did that. All right, 19?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Even when you're famous, honored by all, and as rich as the god of wealth himself, don't be pompous. Know that the magnificence of existence has no substance. This is the practice of Bodhisattva. Now, what's nice about that, I have to say, and this is really like helpful, it's not saying give up your wealth, give up your success. You know, be a beggar and just like give it all up. You know, be wealthy, whatever, if that's what's good for you. But see that the wealth is empty and that it's transient. You know, so you can enjoy it, but know that it's not real. Can you do that? Or does our enjoyment come from a sense of attachment? Can you enjoy from non-attachment? That's an interesting prospect, isn't it? Try it out. How do you know whether you're attached or not when you're enjoying something? What's your reaction when you don't have it anymore? Right? That's the test. It's not while you have it, it's when you lose it or when it changes. Then you know what your relationship along the way was. Right? So notice your relationship to change when you are experiencing pleasure or wealth. If you don't subdue the opponent inside, your own anger, we're at 20. Although you subdue opponents outside, they just keep coming. Muster the forces of loving kindness and compassion and subdue your own mind. This is the practice of Bodhisattva. This is as far as we got last night. So we're winning. But what I needed to point out last night that I want to point out tonight also, of course there's what we read in the Dhammapada, like saying, you know, you can conquer vast armies, but if you don't conquer yourself, like what's the point? So it's really conquering your own anger. But here there's another, I would say, angle that is important to notice. What's the angle here? Muster the forces of loving kindness, compassion, okay, and subdue your own mind. You don't get rid of anger by saying anger is bad, negative, and I'm going to like push you out of the way. You subdue anger by cultivating the opposite, okay? It's not by suppressing anger. It's by raising up something even more powerful, which is loving kindness and compassion. Right? You want to get rid of your anger, not by saying, bad anger, gonna ignore the anger. No, by working on your loving kindness, compassion. And here it's saying muster. That's kind of like muster your forces, like gather your strength, gather your forces. This is also like kind of nice because it's saying sometimes we have this impression of loving kindness, compassion being, you know, nice. You know, nice. Like be happy, be free. Well, here it's saying this is a force to subdue your mind. You know, sometimes loving kindness, compassion has to be really strong, okay, and sharp. Has to cut through the anger. Has to say, hey, I got to use this is an emergency. I got to use this right now. You know, I mean, if someone's really suffering, you can't just have gentle compassion. You got to have like powerful compassion. Sometimes it has to be as strong or stronger than the opposing force. So muster that energy of compassion and kindness. You know, it's not just love. You know, it's like a strong force. You know, use that energy. 21. Sensual pleasures are like salty water. The deeper you drink, the thirstier you become. Any object that you attach to, right away, let it go. This is the practice of a bodhisattva. Again, the letting go here does not mean you don't, you know, enjoy it. It just means where can you find the balance of enjoying it and knowing deep inside the truth of all things that it's gonna pass. You know? How can you do that? Well, that's our practice. The practice of Bodhisattva.
Can you say again what is the English term for Bodhisattva?
A Bodhisattva is basically an awakened being. Somebody who is awakened, right? And you're awakened to the truth that you are not separate from others. So that helping others is helping yourself. And therefore, like, your suffering will not be over until everyone's suffering is over. So it's someone who's awakened to the great unity of life.
The air between us doesn't separate us, but connects us.
Yeah, yeah. Whatever arises in experience is your own mind. Mind itself is free of any conceptual limitations. Know that and don't generate subject-object fixations. This is the practice of a bodhisattva. Right? Now this is getting a little bit abstract. Okay? Whatever arises in experience is in your own mind. What we're talking about, not about the physical reality of anything, but the ideas that you have. You know, what you think of the world is simply what you think of the world. I mean, it sounds reasonable, but when we consider what that really means, it's not just what we think, but for some reason we behave very much according to what we think. Okay? So again, it brings us back to meditation of looking at how your ideas are coming up, and then your reactions, your emotional reactions, are not in relationship to this bowl, but to my idea of liking or disliking the bowl. Right? And so, if I notice that so much of my emotional life is based on my mind, not on the outer world, like somebody didn't make me angry, okay? That just didn't happen. Nobody makes you angry, right? Who makes you angry? I mean, come on. Your mind, your likes and dislikes, that makes you angry, right? Nobody did it to you. Okay? Somebody can be in the same situation and have a different reaction. How does that happen? Well, I guess they understood it differently. They had a different subject-object relationship. That's what he said here by subject-object fixations. Just on the subject, and the object I'm relating to, okay, is loaded. Right? Loaded with my ideas. Right? If I get rid of some of those ideas, then I can have a kind of easier time. Right? Especially when I notice that a lot of those ideas cause me difficulty. Right? Basically, the likes and dislikes, the aversions, the attachments. It's coming from my own mind. Take responsibility. When you come across something you enjoy, though beautiful to experience, like a summer rainbow, don't take it as real. Let go of attachment. This is the practice of a bodhisattva. All forms of suffering are like dreaming that your child has died. Taking confusion as real wears you out. When you run into misfortune, look at it as confusion. This is the practice of a bodhisattva. That's hard to do, isn't it? Right? Bad things happen to you? What's your reaction? Right? I mean, generally, when bad things happen, we feel bad. Anger, or disappointment, or sadness, or, depression, or whatever negative emotions you can have to our difficulties and obstacles. But that's not a given. It's simply not a given. Right? That's what you are choosing. Can you take responsibility for your own choices? And here, the choice we can have is that when I'm feeling upset, it's because I'm confused. Right? What is the confusion here? What am I confused about? I'm confused about me, about who I am, what will make me happy, okay, and where suffering comes from. Right? There's deep confusion there. The 12 links of dependent origination in the Buddhist idea. The first cause of all this problem is called ignorance. Ignorance. Ignorance means not knowing, right? I don't know the nature of me in my own mind. I don't know the nature of what it means to be alive, right? And by not knowing that nature, then I start to attach to things because I think that they will make me happy. But if I can look at the nature of my own mind, it's always free and clear. Then I won't be fixated, as he said, on these objects thinking it will make me happy. So, or sad if I don't get them. That's why instead of saying, that you have all these problems, when you experience difficulty, notice the confusion. Notice the confusion. Wow, I'm, having a hard time. Why? Because the nature of my mind, my own life, is so unclear to me right now. It's so unclear, right? Sit with that. Sit with the confusion. The confusion may express itself through depression or anger or disappointment, right? That's the symptom, okay? You can look at the symptom, but go under the symptom and see that the root of the symptom is that deep confusion of who and what you are. Look at it as confusion. That is the practice of Bodhisattva. Don't look away. Look at it. Again, this brings us back to our meditation. Okay? You have to look at your mind when you're sitting. Okay? And at the places that you don't like. Don't look away. Until you've had that 15 minutes and it's too much. And then get up. If those who want to be awake have to give even their bodies, what need is there to talk about things that you simply own? Be generous, not looking for any return or result. This is the practice of a bodhisattva. Okay? This is also not just a mental exercise, but we want a relationship to the physical world that is also a little, less self-centered. If you can't tend to your needs because you have no moral discipline, then intending to take care of the needs of others is simply a joke. Observe ethical behavior without concern. For conventional existence, this is the practice of a bodhisattva. What we're going over here are called the 6 paramitas. All right. The first one, what we just read here in 25, is generosity, the paramita of dana, which is giving. Okay. Here is talking about being generous. And then the second one is the paramita of sila, which is having moral discipline. Right? Meaning that if you are, what's the moral discipline here? It's the 5 precepts of not killing, not stealing, not lying, not having, intoxicants that confuse your mind, and not having harmful sexuality or intimacy. So that moral discipline is basic for having a good contemplative life or, helping others. These are basics. All right. And then 27. For bodhisattvas who want to be rich in virtue, a person who hurts you is a precious treasure. Cultivate patience for everyone, completely free of irritation or resentment. This is the practice of a bodhisattva. All right, that's another paramita we have, is patience. Okay, patience. What is the patience here? It's pretty interesting because we usually think that we need to be patient, and here we're saying we need to be patient for others. It may take others a lot longer than it takes you to come to some of the realizations you have. Can you be patient with them? Right? They're going to take their own time to stop hurting others. You have to be responsible for your time, but be patient with others because, they have their own path to follow. And it may cause harm along the way, but, they have to learn their own way. They have to make their mistakes. Be patient with them. Listeners and solitary Buddhas, working only for their own welfare, are seen to practice as if their heads were on fire. To help all beings, pour your energy into practice. It's the source of all abilities. This is the practice of a bodhisattva. Okay? This is another paramita, which is called having energy or motivation in your practice. Your time's running out. You've got to work hard. Don't waste a minute. You may be tired, you may be bored, you may be restless, you may have other things to do. The Buddhas are practicing like their heads are on fire. The world is on fire. People are suffering. They need your help. What are you waiting for? Okay? This is what the paramita of energy is saying, Get over your own, issues and help. Understanding that emotional reactions are dismantled by insight supported by stillness. Cultivate meditative stability that passes right by the 4 formless states. This is the practice of Bodhisattva. Nice. This is the paramita of meditation. Okay? Samadhi. Calm clarity. Sit and sit more. And notice that all your emotions, whatever you have, passes. No matter, one of the treasured insights of meditation is that whatever you go through, passes. Everything then is seen as empty, of having fixed substance, especially your own thoughts, ideas, and feelings. That's an important insight to have in meditation, and it comes from keeping that still point and looking at all the flow. Practice that with diligence. Okay, that's the paramita of meditation. And finally, in 30, without wisdom, the 5 perfections are not enough to attain full awakening. Cultivate wisdom endowed with skill and free from the 3 domains. This is the practice of Bodhisattva. Okay, wisdom is the last paramita. And as we see here, that it's the wisdom of emptiness, of unity, of non-self. Okay. And non-self doesn't mean you don't have a self. It just means you're not really necessarily as separate and fixed as you think you are most of the time. But wisdom and meditation and energy, okay, and patience and more life and giving and generosity, those 6 paramitas, right, they are the qualities of a bodhisattva. So when we say, how do I become more compassionate? Well, you know what? It's a system. You got to work on all these things. So at some point we're saying, like, I'm going to, give and receive. But you can't just give and receive if you don't have a stable meditation practice. And you're not going to have a stable meditation practice if you don't put energy into it. And you're not going to put energy into it if you're not patient also, right? And it'll be hard to be patient if you're really restless because your moral life is out of control. Okay? And you can get your moral life more into control if you're more generous and you just give more. So you see that all the paramitas are bringing us back to how to be a bodhisattva. So work on all of those, not necessarily all at the same time, but cover your bases, as we say. If you don't go into your own confusion, you may just be a materialist in practitioner's clothing. Constantly go into your own confusion and put an end to it. This is the practice of a bodhisattva. Trungpa Rinpoche, who was a Tibetan teacher in Colorado, he had a book called Spiritual Materialism, right? Where basically we took our same grasping for things and we just put it on our spiritual life. Like, I want to be, enlightened. And I want you to know that. So that is just another type of materialism, only we put it into a spiritual way. Notice your own confusion. What is the confusion? Who am I? What's really important? What does it mean to be happy? What does it mean to suffer? Where does suffering come from? These are the questions that will help clarify the meaning of life and help clear away the clouds of confusion. Ask those questions frequently. Don't jump to conclusions or jump to answers. Who am I? Why am I here? What is a meaningful life? What really matters? I want to move on and just skip to we'll finish here with 34. Abusive language upsets others and undermines the ethics of a bodhisattva. So, don't upset people or speak abusively. This is the practice of a bodhisattva. That seems so small to us, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. So easy after we've gone through all those other paramitas, right? And wisdom, I've realized. And near the end, isn't it interesting that already at 34, like so far at the end, we have to be reminded, speak nicely. Like, after all this, watch what you say. There's that, and this is where I just need to, what comes to mind is the old Zen koan, which is, there's a buffalo with big horns, and the horns get through, the head gets through, the shoulders get through, the whole, body gets through, and the tail gets stuck. How did the tail get stuck? No, that was the koan. What do you do with that? How did the whole ox get through the door, but the tail got stuck? Because you said a wrong word. That's why. you said a mindless word that hurt someone's feelings. You were so wise and generous and patient and everything, then you just said the wrong thing. You know, the tail got stuck. Everything matters. We're going to get to that everything, which is right here. I want to go to 36. In short, everything you do, right? In short, everything you do. Know what is happening in your mind. By being constantly present and aware, you bring about what helps others. This is the practice of a bodhisattva. To dispel the suffering of beings without limit, with wisdom freed from the three spheres, direct all the goodness generated by these efforts to awakening. This is the practice of a bodhisattva. Awaken your mind and be careful with everything you do. It all matters. There's not one thing that doesn't matter. There's not one thing that is not an expression of a bodhisattva practice. Practice well. Take care and enjoy. Before we close with half a minute to sit and forget everything, does anyone have a comment or question you'd like to say or ask? Stuff.
If we have something that we know we have attachment to, because if we think about losing it, we get scared and we don't want to lose it. So how do we let go of this attachment without getting rid of it?
Well, this is where we are trying to awaken our mind. Basically, you accept the attachment. That's the one thing. The first stage is, you notice your reaction, right? And by noticing it, you're no longer defined by it completely. It's there, but what is there to judge? It's like conditioned mind. And by noticing the conditioning, it doesn't mean that you have to have aversion and say, oh, I shouldn't have attachment to it. Because that's aversion. Mm-hmm. Like having aversion to the attachment is useless, right? It's just doing the same thing. So you notice it and you actually say, okay, like, oh, here you are. I have enough space for you also. Right? And then when you go back to whatever the activity is, you're doing it more from choice and not from reaction. But it's by pausing. So that pause, and it's like what I was saying with Dan, that pause to create compassion, right, is the pause that makes all the difference in the world between reacting and relating. So you can relate to your experience and you can relate to your attachment with acceptance, kindness, and choice. And then you may choose exactly, to get involved with the same thing, right? But it's more from choice and not from reaction. You let go of the reaction by simply accepting the attachment, because you take that pause, right? You just pause. It's kind of like with speech. Speech is a really good practice for that. Is very often we want to speak without pause. But what's it like when you pause before you say something? You may say the same thing, but the intention is different. So when you can pause, you may then, get involved, or you may take the same thing, but the relationship is a little different. It's more relation and not reaction. So that's what I'm saying is notice, pause, continue.